Do you think hangovers suck? Me too. And that's why I'm going to show you how to put together a group of delicious mocktails that are going to make you feel like you're drinking a craft beverage, but with ingredients that you can get at most local grocery stores and that come together in just a couple minutes. Cheers. I have a super sneaky mocktail hack. Are you ready? The way to make your mocktails feel super fun and fancy without hardly any effort is to serve them in a fun glass. These glasses are vintage. They have this really nice etched pattern. I got them at a local thrift store. There was an odd number, so I got them for like $1 a piece. But if you serve someone a drink in this, it's going to make them pause, make them think a little bit. And the reason that fancy glasses make us feel like we're having something fun, it's kind of the same reason that we wear jewelry or we decorate our spaces. It's really kind of a way to personalize things and take it a little bit away from the everyday vibes. So I'm going to make today a Tangelo and Thyme mocktail, and it is going to be two ways, a super simple way and a way that's a little bit more fancy. So we are going to start today with our glass. I made some ice cubes in my silicone ice cube trays that are going to, these will last till like I'd pass these on if I had grandkids, pass on my grandkids. I don't. So I dyed my ice cube here with some of this beet orange juice. And what's kind of fun is it's separated in the freezing process, the red and the orange. So I think that kind of adds even more of an interesting element. So I'm going to pop that in. I put some club soda with that. That's already a pretty drink, but I've got my ice cube going in there. This is going to be a lower sugar mocktail. That's how I make most of my mocktails. So here we have our Tangelo. I'm going to go ahead and roll it out a little bit to kind of wake up those oils in the Tangelo. My next step with my Tangelo, I'm going to score it with my super sharp knife. And by scoring it with my super sharp knife, I'm waking up the naturally occurring oils that are in this citrus. So when I go to put it in the drink, not only am I going to get the taste of the flesh, I am going to get the taste of this wonderful peel. And peels, a lot of times of our citrus, are going to be a little bit sweeter and just have different flavor notes in them. There's different chemical compounds in the peel than there are inside in the flesh. So I chose a Tangelo. I think Tangelos have a little bit more flavor wise going on. Sometimes if you just get like a traditional navel orange, especially like out of season, it doesn't have a ton of flavor, but Tangelos to me deliver pretty consistently on flavor. So I'm going to squeeze my Tangelo in to this fancy glass here. If you can see, there's already, it's kind of fun, some of the red kind of bleeding out from my ice cube. This might be a fun, like spooky season mocktail. Then I'm going to add my club soda for some fizz. And I'm going to add some thyme. If you're picking up herbs at the store to make mocktails, I love choosing a woodier herb like thyme or rosemary because they last a lot longer than the more leafy, watery stems like a basil. So this smells good on its own. I'm going to go ahead and whack it on the counter. I think thyme's underused in mocktails. I just think it's not something everybody thinks about. But when it's not cooked or it's not dried, it really does have some nice floral notes. So I'm going to pop that in, and I'm actually going to kind of like tuck it in. I maybe could have put it on the bottom, but what I like about thyme is it kind of naturally, a lot of times will grow in this sort of curved C-shape pattern, and that fits nicely in a glass like this. And I might even leave a little bit of thyme poking out so that when I go to get a drink, I'm also getting the aromatic experience of the herb instead of just the flavor. And in fact, especially with woody herbs and mocktails, that's usually what I'm more going for is the aromatic effect. So let's take a drink. Ooh, that's nice. It has some really nice background notes of the Tangelo, which will over time kind of continue to hang out. It's absolutely beautiful. This is virtually no sugar in it. Another thing that you could do if you want it to be a little bit sweeter, you want a little bit more impact. So this is a cold pressed juice from one of my local health food stores, and all it has in it is orange and beet. So there's definitely sugar in here. If you were to drink an 8-ounce cup of it, it's 25 grams of sugar, which for women, that's about all the sugar we need in the day. But really, we're having like a couple of tablespoons there, so we can probably afford that sugar. So I'm going to stir it now. And the reason I show you these like next level things is because everyone's flavor palette is different. And the beauty of working with fresh ingredients is you can kind of continue to add and tweak to your flavor palettes. It's not a huge investment. It doesn't take a ton more time. We just added a little bit more juice. So let's give it a taste. That's nice. It's got a little more hint of sweetness to it and still gorgeous, nice and red. I think this would do well on any holiday table. So that is our more fancy version. So we have a dyed ice cube, we have our Tangelo, we have some thyme, we have a little bit of fresh juice, and we have some club soda. So for the super simple version, we got ice. I got my Tangelo, which had the scored peel on it to let some of those citruses out. I'm going to get my Tangelo in. I'm going to take my thyme and I'm going to whack it on the counter to wake up those oils that are naturally occurring in it. I'm going to stick it in my glass. Already beautiful, already a work of art. And add some club soda. So these are things you can definitely keep on hand. Go to the store, buy an orange, keep in your fridge for 2 weeks. Woodier herbs last for at least 2 weeks in your fridge. And a club soda, could survive the apocalypse. So you've got everything you need for this is virtually no sugar mocktail here. Same concept. So thyme and citrus work really well together. If I let this hang out, the flavors will kind of meld a little bit more. So essentially we have a similar idea. Both feel fancy. One's a little bit less sugar than the other, and they could easily wake up a weeknight or would be a really fun weekend mocktail or holiday mocktail. Enjoy. When do fruits and veggies taste their best? It's at the peak of their growing season. So for things like apples, that might be fall, tomatoes, that summer, watermelon, summer, berries are in the spring. I like to take advantage of the abundance of those fruits when they're available seasonally and when they're at the peak of their flavor. And I do some different things to freeze them. This afternoon, I'm going to show you my 4 apple lovers only mocktail using some apple cider that I made and froze to use for later applications. The ingredients for my apple cider that I made, I basically chopped up a bunch of apples, threw them in a big pot with some water, some cinnamon sticks, and I like to add orange peels to my apple cider so that it just adds another flavor element, adds a hint of sweetness. And then I finish it with local raw honey to sweeten it. So this is already a pretty sweet drink because I like to make it a little bit more concentrated so I can use it in things like mocktails. And this is going to kind of be the base of my mocktail here. One thing I do like to do when I have a sweeter start to my base is add some things like club soda. You could add some sparkling waters with maybe some friendly flavors that would mirror each other. So for this mocktail, we're going to start, I like a mason jar. I don't know, I kind of think of like apples and canning. The mason jar just, I think, kind of nods to that sort of heritage. This afternoon, I have some fun ice cubes with a leaf frozen in them. And we're going to be using sage. So I think these are a fun little additive. You could just use regular ice cubes too, but that is just a way to add a little bit of interest, a little bit of color to your drink. I have my 2 big old ice cubes in there. This is my apple cider. This is a sweeter drink for sure. I'm going to probably do about a 50-50 ratio with club to my cider. And here is where you can have fun, or I like to have fun. So I have sage is a herb that grows in my climate like early spring to late fall. So it's pretty abundant most of the year, and you can get it in those little plastic packages at the grocery store. It's going to add an aromatic element. What I like about adding something that we might normally find in like a savory application to a sweet application is it can kind of help break up some of that sweetness. And really, fresh sage on its own definitely has some of those more like earthy notes, but it does have some woody notes, which if you think about like apple wood, hard smoked things, that kind of woody flavor plays nicely with apples. So I'm going to bruise my sage as I bruise all my herbs to wake up those oils, because as much as it is going to add flavor, it's actually probably going to add more to our mocktail in an aromatic effect. So I'm going to stick that in there. Isn't that cute? Like a little sage palm tree hanging out there. And I'm going to add some club soda. And I have a couple of optional things. So if I had a fresh lemon wedge, I would probably add a fresh lemon wedge into this. Citrus is another way that you can break up sweet drinks. If you've made something, you're like, oh, dang, I put too much agave, I put too much maple syrup, I put too much honey in my drink. Add a little bit of citrus. It can kind of help cut that sweetness. And I'm going to add some essential oils. So lemon essential oil is made from the peel. And a lot of times the oils from the peel are a little bit more sweeter than like the tart fruit that would be inside. So since I don't have fresh lemon, I'm going to add lemon oil. And essential oils keep for years. And maybe you're not an essential oil user, totally fine. You could get some flavor extracts at your local grocery store. I would probably choose like the organic ones so that you can try to make sure that they're not artificially flavored, having a bunch of chemicals in them. And this has a supplement label on it. That's how I know I can ingest it. And I have some mocktail essentials that will link below for other things that I use in mocktails pretty regularly. And I mentioned that the sage is usually a more savory element, and that can kind of help break up the sweet. I'm going to add 1 drop of sage oil. It is really going to step up the flavor profile of this mocktail. It's strong. It's very strong. So even like when I diffuse sage, it's very strong. So Spanish sage can actually help with sort of calm focus. So this might be a fun like 3 p.m. drink. You're working from home, you need a little bit of a pick me up. Spanish sage would be good for that because it can kind of be energizing. We're ready to go. I'm going to stir this fella up here with a tool that's too big. That's a fun little sound. Oh, wow. That's really nice. It's like apple juice, but for adults in like the best possible way. Having those warm spices that I put in the apple cider, like cinnamon and nutmeg, really go a long way here to round out this drink and kind of make it feel like a dessert. The sage makes it feel more earthy and a little bit more grounded, and kind of takes that sweetness level down a little bit. So while I have this sage sticking up here, you can see my herbs coming through and my ice cubes there, which is kind of fun. So you could also do this with things like watermelon juice. You could also make something like a peach nectar and add it to an NA sparkling wine. I've done that before. I did an NA sparkling wine. I added a couple of sage leaves and a drop of sage oil, and everybody loved it, because a lot of like your NA wines and things, to kind of get the flavor rounded out, they have a lot of sugar in them. So by adding the savory element, it kind of helped balance it out. So this is probably like, the sage is strong. This is probably not like an every night of the week mocktail, but this is definitely one that would be fun. You're having some friends over for fall, you're doing a little bit of a bonfire, or you just kind of need something fun on a Friday afternoon. This would do it. Let's do a little word association. When I say margarita, what do you think? For most people, it's a Mexican restaurant, and it's definitely not a mocktail. Well, I'm going to show you how to make a margarita mocktail at home. a Mockrita. And I'm going to show you two ways to do it. One that is a little bit more involved, builds a few more flavors, and then one that is super straightforward that you can probably already make with ingredients that you have at home. So I'm going to go over the ingredients that I'm using as I build the mocktail, and you guys will get to enjoy the results. So first of all, I have a fun glass. I have never gotten a margarita in a boring glass at a fun Mexican restaurant. So these glasses are from my in-laws' wedding. They got married in the 70s. And I think a lot of us, kind of only maybe bring that margarita glass out like once or twice a year when we're having a little patio party. So I like this glass. It's kind of nice and versatile. Definitely optional. You can drink a margarita out of whatever you want, but we got a fun glass here today. So my first step for my more advanced Mockrita is going to be putting a little apple cider vinegar in the bottom of my cup. A couple of things that this does. It is tart, which a margarita is, and it is an aged fermented product, which is what alcohol is. And so when we have another aged fermented product, it can kind of help us mirror that flavor. So vinegar is definitely something that you can kind of bring in to sauces and to mocktails and to different things to really kind of add layers of flavor. That naturally occurring process that happens in the fermentation is really something that's like hard to replicate. So that's why we're going to substitute here instead of tequila. So I'm probably going to put about a tablespoon and a half in our cups. This is probably a pantry staple for most people if you're living a little bit of a healthier lifestyle. I have some in my adrenal cocktail in the morning usually. And the next thing we're going to do is add some agave. So agave is what tequila is made out of. So this is for both our simple and our more complicated, or okay, I don't want to say complicated, but our more intensive margarita. So I'm going to give this a little stir and kind of let the acid in the apple cider vinegar break up that sugar so we don't end up with it sitting down here. This drink definitely is going to need some sweetener because we have all these tart elements. What's great about agave versus like traditional cane sugar, which you could make like a simple syrup with, which is just traditionally like sugar and water. Agave is less likely to spike your blood sugar, and that can lead to less fatigue, little like less mood swings, less food cravings. So that's another benefit of using like agave over a refined sugar. Next step in our more advanced mocktail is going to be a lime, a fresh lime. So I'm going to roll this sucker out. This helps break apart the flesh in the inside so that I get the most juice possible out of this. And I'm even the ends, a lot of times I will massage with my thumbs a little bit. And I'm going to do one thing before I slice into this. If I had a microplane here, I would maybe microplane the zest into the drink. It would make a nice little confetti garnish. That's an option that you can do. Or you can use essential oil. Really, any citrus oil is made from the peels of instead of the tart inside. So they make a nice kind of like nod to a sweet element when we're using them in mocktails. So you could microplane a little bit of zest. I'm just going to cut this fella in half here. It smells really good. This is a citrus press, optional. You could just squeeze with your hand if you like, but this is a way to get kind of max juice. So I'm going to put a whole lime in this next level mocktail marg here. So it goes down in the round part, smooshes on the other round part of the lime. So that whole lime is going in there. In my more advanced mocktail, I'm going to put probably about 3 drops because I really want to add that little bit of sweet hint. This is a doTERRA essential oil. It's really the only brand that I would ingest. They have a supplement label, which is how you know you can eat them. And doTERRA's lime oil is made from key limes, which are inherently a little bit sweeter than a traditional lime. And then I did something kind of fun. I made some ice cubes with a frozen lime in them just to add a little bit of special touch, something kind of fun. These are things you can do. It's also a great thing to do, like maybe you have some citrus or you have some berries or you have some herbs that you need to kind of use up. You have these ice cube trays laying around. Go ahead and make it an ice cube with that. So we have a big ol' ice cube here in our drink. For our next level Marg Mocktail, I'm going to use this Spindrift product. So this is a wonderful sparkling water and it has real fruit juice in them. So what I like about it is it already kind of has a more natural flavor, which adds to like the fresh element. So I'm going to top it off with that. And then last but not least, I'm going to add a jalapeno. Our palate likes salt, fat, acid, heat. And when we can kind of work that in, even with our drinks, it adds depth and layers of flavor. So I have these cute little tasting spoons that I use in my kitchen. I'm going to scrape those seeds out. You can scoop it with whatever, spoon that you have laying around. I got a whole jalapeno here, and I'm just going to give the drink a swirl. I want to make sure I get that sugar up from the bottom, or the sugary flavor with the agave. Almost all the mocktails that I make are low sugar. We all get so much sugar from just various sources in our diet. We don't really need any more. So for our next level mocktail, I'm going to give it a taste. Oh, wow. That really does taste like a margarita from a restaurant. It's definitely very tart. Over time, the jalapeno, the capsaicin that's in it, will kind of settle and hang out in the water or in the drink a little bit. I also like, for a more tart drink like this, kind of this big ice cube so it doesn't water it down, because I don't really want to drink watery tart things. So in this, we have our agave, we have apple cider, we have a Spindrift sparkling water, 3 drops of doTERRA lime essential oil, a whole fresh lime, and we have half a jalapeno. Wow. There's so much flavor in that. So next we're gonna do our super simple Marg Mocktail, stuff you probably already have at home. So this has the agave in it. It has the apple cider. We need those things. We're going to use lime juice just from the fridge, and I like the brand Santa Cruz. So this is about a tablespoon of lime juice in there. I'm just going to add ice from my freezer. That easy. And then I'm going to add club soda. So I had somebody comment on one of my videos recently, and she was like, I need to make time to make these drinks. You don't have to make time to make these drinks. These are things you might already have at home, and it's really just a couple of extra steps, just putting a few things together. So when you follow my simple mocktail formula, which is like a base and then something fresh. So in that case, we have like club soda. We added a couple of fresh things with the lime juice and adding a little agave, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and we're going to give it a taste. That is still delicious. What I taste a little bit more in this one is a little bit more of the apple cider vinegar, which I don't taste in this, the fancier mocktail, because this has a few more layers in it. So a remedy to that might be to just add a little bit more lime juice. So here we have Marg's 2 ways. Yep, I'm double fisting tonight.